Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. New York City, 42nd floor of a gleaming skyscraper. Vivian Carter, a black billionaire and formidable businesswoman, gazes down at the city stretching out below her. Her fashion and technology empire is thriving, but despite her success, a huge void persists in her life. 15 years ago, her only daughter, Aaliyah, disappeared without a trace. Since that day, Vivian has searched tirelessly, multiplying investigations, anonymous calls, and contacts all over the world. But all leads had faded, and despair had at times almost overwhelmed her. The only consolation, a small gold necklace, simple but precious, that her mother had given her and that she had given to her daughter on the day of her disappearance. This necklace, symbol of an indestructible bond, had always hung around her neck, close to her heart, like a beacon in the darkness. That evening, as the sun sets over Manhattan, Vivian feels a strange premonition. A profound intuition, that destiny is finally about to lead her to her daughter. An intuition she cannot ignore, and one that will change her life forever. Morning was breaking over Manhattan, and Vivian Carter, wanting to escape the pressures of her empire, decided to take a walk in a bustling neighborhood, far from the skyscrapers and bright lights of Wall Street. Her steps led her to a small, modest restaurant, nestled between two red brick buildings. The place was simple, almost homely, but it exuded the warmth and everyday life that Vivian rarely had time to appreciate. As she sat down, her eyes fell on a young black waitress bustling between the tables. Tired but determined, she smiled at the customers with a natural, almost mechanical politeness. And then, something caught Vivian's attention. Around the young woman's neck hung a delicate, familiar gold necklace. Her heart skipped a beat. The necklace, the same one she gave to her daughter Aaliyah before she disappeared. Vivian stood there for a moment, breathless. Every movement the waitress made seemed strangely familiar, like an echo of buried memories. Was it possible? After all these years, was luck finally leading her to her daughter? She discreetly observed the young woman. Her gestures, her posture, even her quiet laugh with a colleague, everything evoked a memory that was both painful and tender. Vivian felt her heart race and her hands tremble slightly. With a courage she didn't know she possessed, Vivian stood up and approached the waitress. Each step seemed to slow down time. She stopped a few meters away and said in a soft but firm voice, "Excuse me, can I talk to you for a moment?" The young woman turned around in surprise, meeting deep, determined black eyes. Vivian felt that the moment she had waited 15 years for had arrived. But she knew that everything would now depend on the words she chose. The young waitress frowned, a mixture of suspicion and curiosity in her eyes. "Yes, what do you want?" she asked, wiping her hands on her apron. Vivian felt her heart clench. Every word, every breath in that voice reminded her of her granddaughters, 15 years ago. She took a deep breath and forced herself to remain calm, even though her hands were shaking slightly. I think I know you," Vivian began quietly. My name is Vivian Carter. And I think, you're Aaliyah." The young woman burst out laughing, a nervous, incredulous laugh. "Are you kidding?" she said defensively. "I don't know you, and I'm not Aaliyah Carter." Vivian nodded, understanding the natural reaction. "I know it's hard to believe," she said, delicately removing a small necklace from her pocket, a fine gold pendant that glittered in the restaurant's light. "But that necklace. I gave it to you when you were a child. I've treasured it all this time." The young woman's eyes widened. She stared at the necklace, her trembling hands resting on it. The piece seemed to emit a glow of its own, and within that simple jewel lay a world of memories, forgotten but not erased. A heavy silence fell. Vivian moved a little closer. "It's me, Aaliyah, your mother." The waitress stepped back slightly, tears threatening to fall, mixed with simmering anger and confusion. You don't know anything about me. How can you say that?" Vivian knelt, lowering her height so as not to intimidate him. "I know you've suffered, that you've been alone, but this necklace guided me to you. I've searched for you every day of my life. All I want is to find you, protect you, and love you again. Aaliyah, breathless, felt her heart clench. Memories of her childhood, her laughter with her mother, the cocoon of security she had lost, all came flooding back. But the pain of lost years, of loneliness and betrayal, still prevented her from fully giving in. She only whispered, I don't know if I can. Vivian gently took his hands. You don't have to decide anything right away. I'll be here, waiting for you. Their eyes met, and in that gaze, a fragile but real bridge had been rebuilt between them. 15 years of separation, fear, and pain were finally beginning to transform into tangible hope. After the initial shock, Vivian remained silent for a few moments, letting Aaliyah digest the situation. The young woman continued to stare at the necklace, as if this little jewel contained all the answers to her questions and doubts. Do you remember that day, Vivian began softly, when I took you to the park for your birthday? You wore your pink dress with little white dots, and you insisted on bringing your little teddy bear. Aaliyah shook her head hesitantly. I don't remember very well, she whispered. Vivian smiled tenderly. It's normal, it was a long time ago. But I remember every detail. I remember your laugh, the way you skipped around the flowers, the light in your eyes when you saw the balloons. A shiver ran through Aaliyah. A wave of buried memories began to resurface. She vaguely remembered the park, the laughter, and the sweet smell of summer ice cream. Her heart clenched with emotion and nostalgia. And in the evening, Vivian continued, I read you your favorite story before tucking you in. You fell asleep clutching that necklace in your little hand. Aaliyah stared at the necklace around her neck, her eyes shining with tears. A mixture of anger, sadness, and wonder swirled within her. She had been alone, lost in the world, but this simple piece of jewelry reminded her that she had been loved. Vivian approached slowly and placed her hand on Aaliyah's. I know you've grown up, that you've been through terrible things, but I want you to know that I'm here now. I'll never let you go again. Aaliyah, still trembling, whispered, I don't know if I can trust you. Vivian nodded gently. I understand, and you don't need to decide now. We have plenty of time. For the first time in 15 years, a fragile but real bond was recreated between mother and daughter. In the silence of the restaurant, between the clinking of plates and conversations, something stronger than doubt was taking root, hope. The restaurant suddenly felt stifling to Aaliyah. Her mind was in turmoil. This elegant woman, with her tender gaze, was claiming to be her mother, after 15 years of silence. How could she believe this story? How could she not feel betrayed by a world that had taken so much from her? You really think I'm going to believe you like that, just because you hand me a necklace? Aaliyah said, her voice shaky but firm. Her eyes shone with anger mixed with fear. Vivian took a deep breath, feeling the weight of every word that came out of her mouth. I understand your anger, and your mistrust. You have every reason to doubt. But this necklace, it's more than a piece of jewelry. It's the bond that unites us, despite all this time. Aaliyah shook her head, refusing to give in. You don't know anything about my life. You don't know what I've been through. How can you show up now and change everything? Vivian looked down, her throat tight with emotion. You're right. I can't fully understand everything you've been through. But I can promise you one thing, I will never let you down again. I will be there, every step of the way, if you let me get close. Silence fell between them. Aaliyah, her fists clenched around the apron, felt her heart waver. A part of her wanted to believe, wanted to regain the love and security she had lost. But pain, injustice, and loneliness had made her cautious, wary. I can't right now, she whispered finally, tears rolling down her cheeks. I have to think. Vivian nodded slowly, understanding that patience would be their only ally in rebuilding this bond. All right, take all the time you need. I'll stay here. I won't leave. As Aaliyah returned to her chores, Vivian sat in a corner, watching her daughter from a distance, trying to hold back tears. 15 years of separation weren't erased in an instant. But for the first time in a long time, hope took root in her heart. The necklace shimmered faintly in the restaurant's light, a symbol of a fragile but real bond, ready to strengthen over time. After several minutes of silence, Vivian slowly stood up and approached her daughter again, respecting the space Aaliyah had requested. "I know you suffered, and I can't erase those lost years," she said, her voice trembling. "But I want you to know the truth about what happened the day you disappeared." Aaliyah looked up, wary but curious. She had always imagined stories in her head, explanations, but nothing ever seemed truly real. "Talk, but don't lie to me," she whispered. Vivian took a deep breath and began to tell her story. "That day, you were with me in the park. I lost you for a few minutes, and while I was looking everywhere, someone kidnapped you. The police and investigators did everything they could to find you, but the case quickly went cold." Aaliyah felt her heart clench. 15 years of loneliness, fear, and mistrust were flooding back like a torrent. You looked for me? Really?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Every day of my life," Vivian replied, tears in her eyes. "Every day, I thought about you. I interviewed private detectives, traveled through entire cities, followed every lead, but they all seemed to dissipate into nothingness." Aaliyah, her hands clenched around the necklace, felt anger mixed with sadness fill her. "And me? I had to survive alone, without you, without family." Vivian nodded, her throat tight. "I know, and I'm sorry, more than I could ever express. But now I'm here. And I promise I'll never leave you alone again." Aaliyah's tears finally flowed freely, a mixture of anger, pain, and relief. She felt vulnerable, but a long-buried part of her was beginning to believe that the mother she had lost still existed, alive and determined to find her. I don't know how," Aaliyah stammered. Vivian placed a gentle hand on her cheek. "You don't have to know anything right away. All I want is for you to let me be your mother, little by little. And I'll be patient. Always." For the first time in 15 years, a fragile but real bridge was being created between them. The necklace shimmered, a symbol of their unbreakable bond, and of a future where perhaps the pain of the past could be soothed. The restaurant had become a space suspended in time. Aaliyah, her eyes reddened by tears, felt torn between anger and curiosity. She had been alone for 15 long years, facing a cruel world that left her no room for safety or trust. She began hesitantly, "I want you to know what I've been through." Vivian nodded, silently inviting him to speak. Aaliyah then recounted her life since his disappearance, the odd jobs to survive, the nights spent searching for shelter, the constant fear of mistrust and rejection. Each word seemed to etch into the air a story of resilience, strength, and loneliness. "I learned to fend for myself, to rely on no one," she said, her voice trembling but firm. Vivian listened intently, her throat tight. She felt her daughter's pain as if it were her own. "You must have been incredibly brave," she whispered. "I can't imagine the strength it took to hold on all that time." Aaliyah looked at her, her gaze a mixture of defiance and distrust. "And you were there, living your billionaire life while I struggled just to eat, to survive." Vivian looked down, unable to deny the truth. "I know, and I'm sorry, more than I could ever say. But now, I want to do everything I can to fix what can be fixed, to give you the security and love you should have had." A heavy silence followed. Aaliyah clutched the necklace in her fingers, the tangible symbol of love that had never wavered despite the lost years. I don't know if I can leave it all behind," she whispered. Vivian placed her hand on her daughter's. "You don't have to decide anything now. I'll be there, every step of the way, to listen to you, protect you, and love you. The rest will come with time." For the first time in a long time, Aaliyah felt she was no longer alone. A fragile but persistent glimmer of hope began to pierce the shadows of her past. She realized that, despite the wounds and the lost years, she had finally found her mother, and perhaps, the chance to rebuild a life she had never dared to imagine. In the following days, Vivian began visiting Aaliyah regularly. Each encounter was tinged with caution and tension, but also with palpable emotion. Vivian wanted to show her that she was no longer alone, that she could finally count on someone who loved her deeply. At first, Aaliyah kept her distance, answering in monosyllables or dodging personal questions. But Vivian wasn't discouraged. She came not to impose her authority or her wealth, but to listen, to understand her daughter's wounds. One afternoon, sitting in a small park near the restaurant where they had met, Vivian began sharing childhood memories. "Do you remember that night we looked at the stars on the balcony?" she asked softly. "You asked me why they were shining, and I told you it was to remind you that I would always be there for you, even when you couldn't see me." Aaliyah looked down, a shy smile playing on her lips. I remember a little," she whispered. The memories, once hazy, were slowly returning. The laughter, the hugs, the bedtime stories, all of it came back with a surprising emotional intensity. "I know you've grown up, and you've had to stand up for yourself," Vivian continued. "But I want you to know that you don't have to do it alone anymore." Aaliyah felt her heart waver between suspicion and hope. Vivian's patience and sincerity were beginning to erode the barriers she had built around herself all these years. For the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to dream of a possible relationship with her mother. They spent the afternoon talking, laughing softly, sharing memories and moments of lost innocence. Every smile, every glance exchanged was a brick laid on the fragile but solid bridge that was beginning to rebuild between them. As the sun began to set, Aaliyah, still hesitant, whispered, "Thank you, for not giving up on me, again." Vivian, moved to tears, hugged her daughter. "Never, Aaliyah, never." For the first time in 15 years, the distance between mother and daughter seemed to be closing. The slow and fragile reconciliation had just begun, driven by patience, sincerity, and unwavering love. A few days after their reunion, Vivian invited Aaliyah for coffee in a quiet little lounge, away from the hustle and bustle of the city. The air was mild, thick with the scent of freshly brewed coffee and sweet pastries. Vivian knew this would be an important moment for a true new beginning. "Aaliyah," Vivian began gently, "I know you've built your life the best you can, and I respect that. But I want to offer you something." Aaliyah looked up suspiciously. "A proposal?" she asked, a hint of irony in her voice. Vivian nodded. "Yes. I want to offer you a chance to start over, to choose your future, but on your own terms. You can stay where you are, continue working and living as you have been, or, if you wish, I can help you. Education, housing, opportunities, whatever you want, without pressure." Aaliyah looked down, clutching the necklace in her hands. The idea of real, constant support from her mother was both terrifying and tempting. "And you really think I could," she whispered, "adjust to all of this?" Vivian smiled tenderly. "You don't have to do this alone. I'll be there, but the choice is yours. I don't want you to feel like you have to give anything back to me. I just want you to be yourself, fully and freely." Aaliyah felt her heart warm. For years, she had survived with suspicion and caution. The idea of finally being able to choose, with the support of a mother who loved her, was both strange and comforting. "I'll think about it," she finally said, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "But I want you to know. I don't want to lose my independence." Vivian nodded, understanding perfectly. "I'll never take her from you. I just want to be by your side. Little by little, at your own pace." The afternoon sun reflected in the window, illuminating Aaliyah's necklace. It shone softly, a symbol of an uncertain but promising future, where mother and daughter could finally rebuild what the years had tried to shatter. This moment marked the beginning of a new stage, one of trust, hope and choice, where Aaliyah could begin to dream of a life she had never dared to imagine. As the weeks passed, Vivian and Aaliyah's relationship began to deepen. Each encounter, each conversation, allowed the young woman to rediscover her mother in a new light, not only a powerful woman, but also loving, vulnerable, and deeply human. One afternoon, they were walking in Central Park. The sun filtered through the trees, creating golden glows on the path. Aaliyah walked a little further away, her gaze lost in the vibrant green of the lawns and leaves. "What are you thinking about?" Vivian asked softly. Aaliyah hesitated, then turned to her. "I think about everything I've lost, and what I could still gain. You're my mother, but I don't want to forget who I am." Vivian smiled. "And you won't. This bond between us doesn't erase anything from you. It only adds a new strength, a security you've never known." Aaliyah tightened the necklace around her neck, feeling its symbolic yet comforting weight. She was beginning to realize that this bond could be more than just a memory, it could become the pillar on which she would build her life, a strength that would give her confidence and courage. As the days passed, they shared childhood memories, confidences, and plans. Vivian invited Aaliyah to discover her world little by little, without ever rushing her. The young woman was learning to accept this new reality, to appreciate the love she had never stopped desiring. One evening, looking out over the illuminated city from Vivian's penthouse, Aaliyah whispered, "I think I can start dreaming." Vivian took his hand, a moved smile on her face. "And I'll be there, every step of the way, to help you make those dreams come true." Together. The necklace shone softly under the city lights, a reminder that even after years of separation and pain, the bond between a mother and daughter could survive. It now symbolized their shared future, a future where trust, love, and resilience intertwined to rebuild what had been lost. For the first time in 15 years, Aaliyah felt complete, protected, and loved. And Vivian knew that no distance, no hardship, could ever break this newfound bond. Morning broke over Manhattan, bathing the city in a soft, golden light. Vivian and Aaliyah walked side by side through Central Park, hand in hand, as if the lost years had never existed. Each step seemed to erase a little of the painful past, and each smile strengthened the fragile but strong bond they had rebuilt. "I still can't believe you're actually my mom," Aaliyah whispered, a shy smile on her face. Vivian gently squeezed his hand. "And I can't believe you're finally here, by my side. But I know one thing, we both have a second chance. And I want us to take it together." Aaliyah looked up at the necklace that shone around her neck, a silent witness to their newfound love. "This necklace. I believe it symbolizes more than just your love. It symbolizes our bond, unbreakable." Vivian nodded, moved to tears. "Yes, and now we can build something beautiful, something real. Not just the past, but the future." They stopped by a pond, watching the reflections of the trees and sky on the water. The city around them continued to live, but for Vivian and Aaliyah, time seemed to have stood still, offering them a perfect moment to be reborn. "I want to get to know your world," Aaliyah said, her voice soft. "But I also want to keep what I've built, who I am." Vivian smiled tenderly. "You don't have to give up on yourself. All I want is to be here, by your side, and support you. The rest is up to you." Aaliyah took a deep breath, feeling for the first time in a long time that anything was possible. The future was no longer a threat, but a promise. A promise of shared laughter, confidences, love rediscovered, and hope finally fulfilled. As they continued their walk, hands still intertwined, Aaliyah's necklace glittered in the sunlight. It was a reminder that, even after 15 years of darkness and pain, the love and bond between a mother and daughter could survive anything. And for Vivian and Aaliyah, it was the beginning of a new life, together, hand in hand, ready to write their shared story, stronger and brighter than ever.